All right, so look, I'm under the impression there's going to be a lot of candidate videos, so I'm going to keep it simple. I believe a board member should do everything in their power to grow, keep, and share the sport. And I'm going to break down quickly for you now what I mean by those three things and what I firmly believe a board member for PDGA should do in an effort to promote those three things, okay? So the first thing is we need to grow the sport. We need to focus on the marketing behind it, because there is already a buzz happening. There are already people out there, especially now in this day and age and with the circumstance happening in the world, that are going to their local parks. They are realizing that that strange basket they once saw out in a field has a lot more to it than they initially realized, and people are trying it. We need to grow, we need to capitalize on that, and I believe that starts on a marketing front. What would a media campaign look like for PDGA to join and partner with its players so that the sport is not something you stumble across when you're walking in the park and you see a yellow rim around a basket, but instead it's something that you saw on Facebook or that you saw on Twitter or that you saw that somebody in your community was doing, whether it's officially a sanctioned tournament or just a group of friends going out for fun. We need to grow the sport. We need to capitalize on that. And that starts with spreading the word and spreading the love for the sport we all know and love. The second thing we need to do is keep the sport. We need to understand what about this sport is inherently good that we should not drift away from. You want to be careful of electing a board member that has all these bright and flashy ideas, but they forget where they came from. We do not want disc golf to keep changing. Notice I have no plans to change the sport. We want to grow it and we want to keep it. And what I mean by keeping a sport, I think it speaks more to upkeep than it does to protecting the sport. I mean, we want the sport to grow to new people. We want everybody to consider going out and playing, because you on the other side of the screen know very well, especially if you're watching, how fun this sport is and how awesome it is to become more involved in it. We need to upkeep the sport, we need to stick to its roots, and we need to understand that the same way we fell in love with the sport ought to be the same way somebody else does. It's genuine, it's low cost, high benefit, and it's a sport that we can very easily all come to know and love. But that will be for shame if it changes the sport too much. So in an effort to grow the sport, we find new ways to communicate it. But in an effort to keep the sport, we stick to that old formula, that old recipe, and that is simply loving the game, understanding its roots, and realizing that we can devote just as much attention to our returning players as we can to our new ones. And along the lines of the new ones, I think lastly, we ought to share the sport. What would that look like to partner with new organizations, partner with new creators to get them to try disc golf? Obviously, we've seen that recently with Brody Smith and with these different YouTubers trying out disc golf. What would it look like to do that from the behind the scenes take, from PDGA's standpoint, that we capitalize and embrace those two things? Because so far in my mind, I feel like there is the PDGA side of things, the official sanctioning of the sport, the lifeblood of the organization, but then there's a different tier of disc golf where it's the people and the passion. And I want to blend those lines. I see merit in blending those lines, because if we can have a board of members that care enough to share the sport, it goes beyond sanctioning tournaments. And instead, it moves us into partnering with other people or partnering with other organizations, getting other people, whether they're celebrities or just somebody in your local community, to try this sport so that it can be grown and be kept and be shared all at the same time. Again, I mentioned it briefly at the beginning. I think a huge component of that is marketing, connecting with people, getting the message out there. Everybody knows, and I think it's true with any sport, is there's an ignorance factor and an intimidation factor of, oh, I don't want to try that. We have to break down those barriers, and that starts with communication and ultimately growing, sharing, but primarily also keeping the sport. Thank you guys for your consideration. Good luck with the rest of your YouTube videos, and I look forward to the election results this summer. Much love, and keep on slinging.